Imagine if one of the 8 final bosses is a fully envisioned battle against Godwin. Yeah, I know some of y'all would fold at the greatness that would behold. I'm there with you too. The moment you touch ground, it's time to lock it in. Oh yeah, we back. I know it's been a little while, but unfortunately the world demands my presence outside of this plane of existence. Making money at work, watching it all go to school, suffering on the climb to Celestial on Rivals, you already know the drill. Before we start, I gotta give my sincerest thanks to 2,000 subs and all the feedback I've been getting on my vids. It does mean a lot to me. At some point after this, feel free to peep my first video. It's definitely the most overlooked, and I promise you it is more than what you think it is, even if you've seen familiar video essays. Yap. I know, just run the intro. Nightreign is definitely a game of all time. We've got a lot to cover. The clips you're going to be seeing in this vid are going to be from other creators. I will be giving them credit where due. Sorry for being a bum. I don't know how to do all the recording shit right now from my console. I want to preface by saying, I'm not here to tell you what Nightreign is or isn't. After all, we need to remember, those who played the network test, myself included, only had a smidgen of available content in a very bounded and conformed fashion. As far back as this game's reveal, there is just so much misinformation and a lot of misinterpretation of what this game even is. Refer to my previous video. We played a network test, and the way we experienced it, it's not going to be a one-to-one reflection of the final product. In this video, I'm going to be focusing on the multiplayer aspects more than the solo stuff. So, on the topic of misinterpretation, do not suddenly get the idea that this game can't be played solo. I've already seen too many people create a false reality where they believe this game is strictly multiplayer. It's not. This should be basic knowledge 3 months later, after the announcement of this game, but I know this community got people who be choosing to not absorb information if it means they can complain about stuff.
It's just the way it is. I'm just a messenger.
You could tell FromSoftware shit for what it is, and somehow, some way, people will find a way to be confused. Before I wrap up my preface, I just gotta show the latest example of what I mean by this. It's actually hilarious. Luke, listen, I fucks with you heavy. Roll the clip.
Exploration, the very difficult bosses, the building of your character to overcome that challenge, all of those things that made Elden Ring a masterpiece are just gone here. And instead what you have is a game that's been built to go very, very quick and fast-paced. It's designed for you to kind of rush through areas quickly, to pivot into new ones, to get more loot and to collect more runes. And that already feels antithetical to the Elden Ring design philosophy.
No shit, man. It's a different game. You're not even ill-informed. You got a whole video covering this game's announcement. How are you possibly even clueless with how the game would actually end up playing?
I have no knowledge of any of this.
Face ass. Preface out of the way. I'm here to state my first impressions after having played it myself. My concerns, the strengths I see so far, and my hopes I want to see fulfilled for when this game does come out. Universally though, with what we got our hands on, the general consensus is that the game is fun. And for a concept which many were skeptical of, I think that is easily one of the most important takeaways from having played it. And would you look at that? It's not a battle royale. Who's surprised? Not me. I'm gonna be getting into the existence of the ring later in the video, but as close as it is to a battle royale, weapons have tiers of rarity, and you gotta res knock teammates when they go down. And by the way, those few traits I just mentioned are not unique to a battle royale. Alright, but for real, let me get into it now. I want to start with my concerns, and I'm gonna use that term lightly because there are blatant problems which have been made known. Some of what I have to say can simply tie down with the fact that this was a network test. I played for my Series X, and while I faced zero performance issues, I've seen a lot of other people, especially those on PlayStation, have those type of problems. This game should have little to no performance issues on release. Something we can all agree on in unison is the fact that this game needs to have a more conventional property as a means to like multiplayer aspects and the user interface in and out of a match session. The first thing that comes to mind is a in-game voice chat. Unfortunately for me, none of my friends got accepted into the network test, and so I solo queued with randoms. Whether my teammates had an idea of what to do or if they were just basura getting dog walked by every other encounter. The most irritating thing to me was just trying to communicate with them. You'll have no idea how irritating it was to be in visible range of a dragon with my team just to witness them hit a 180 and go the other way. Mis hermanos en Cristo, it's day 2. That dragon is free eats. There was also a couple times when I looted a stone sword key, and I had no real way of letting them know I even got one, except for pinging it while it was on the ground. From there, I'd ping a jail nearby, so at the bare minimum, I'd let them know we could head to it and fight a boss. Most of the time, they would just stroll off and do some other fuck shit, so I would just get to scrapping and come out in tatters. So yeah, as a means of having more conventional ways to communicate in a co-op focused game, there's just gotta be more to it than what was presented to us in the network test. Nightreign still runs from the password system too, if you didn't know that. Personally, I wish I could just invite my bros rather than having to, work with the password still, but it's whatever, I guess. Tradition is tradition. But it would be nice if the roundtable could serve as like a lobby for you and friends or random people, if you catch my drift. Then there's the dynamic of play, and it's hella fun, don't get me wrong. This is one of those things that is probably just tied to the experiences I had in testing, and I wish to see it fully envisioned and properly executed in the full release. Obviously, no two runs should ever feel the same or be the same for the sake of making each session a new and unique experience. In the network test, I think we were given a total of 2 maps alongside specifically generated enemies and bosses, and for the sake of familiarizing players with the intended flow of the game, I'm cool with that. That is why I said earlier in the video, the content given to us was very much delivered in a conformed manner. However, when the game does come out, I am praying maps and presented mobs are generated randomly and remain diverse each time. If Ishizaki and his team can keep the RNG factor of booting up a new run to be fresh every time, that is all this game needs to stand the test of time as a Souls title in a roguelike game. More than Nightreign only being fun, I'd argue that proponent I mentioned is like the most important for the sake of this game succeeding at all. Now I'm going to shift over to the topic of bosses and the concerns I got from playing Nightreign. There were times when the boss would freeze, straight up overwhelmed by the heat they were taking from 3 players. This phenomenon can be seen in any previous title if you and friends are moving like big steppers, no kidding. When it happens, it's pretty funny, but in Nightreign, I don't know, that kind of felt more like a yikes to me. I say this because Nightreign prioritizes the 3-player experience, and the AI shouldn't be goofing like that. If this problem of old is going to be present every other time a boss gets a Jujutsu Kaisen certified jumping, then yeah, personally it does pull me out of the moment a bit. Like I said, that's just me though. Then there's my second concern, but honestly, I'll categorize this as more like wishful thinking. From what we experienced in testing, they added movesets to existing bosses of new and old. In my previous video, I speculated they would modify previous bosses or new ones to better fit the pacing and nature of the game. And so, I'll say it again, you can put your stocks on me. Who's surprised? Not me!
I knew it! I knew it!
Anyways, there is one thing I'd like to see in regards to these changes with bosses. I want to see some really unique, combative dynamics in how a boss can keep all 3 players on their toes. What do I mean by this? Let's start by taking a look at Discount Beast of Darkness here. If you've seen anything Nightreign, you know this is one of the unique final bosses. When they break into 3 separate forms, I think the intention behind it was to split aggro between boss and players. Dope concept, but not executed so well if that was the case. Only because half the time I'd have 2 of them aggro me or a random off the rip. But do you see my vision? Stay with me now. We know the Nameless King is going to be an existing boss, so imagine this. When he's in the air charging up a lightning spear, instead of him throwing only 1 spear, make it 1 for each player present. Stay with me now. A couple weeks ago, I helped a friend kill Promise Consort Radahn, and I noticed something which never happens in a solo run. You know that attack where Radahn sends a copy to you and then charges at you right after? Sometimes Radahn would send the decoy out to me and then charge my friend. Other times he would send the decoy out to my friend and then press me directly. If you see my vision, you know this design is actually peak. I can see it, I can feel it, he's cooking. That was the type of motion I'd never witnessed in a solo run. And it goes to show the potential dynamic these games can really have when you bring co-op into the mix. I want to see little details like that within Nightreign to keep all 3 players engaged with fights like never before. I think it would make Nightreign stand out even more. But maybe I'm onto literally nothing, because I'm not a game dev, and what I just said could pave way for people to tell FromSoft how not to design a boss fight. My next concern might trigger some flashbacks for many. I got one word for you. Balancing. If I hit you with a flashbang with a catalog of Elden Ring critique videos, my fault. I don't exactly mean it in the way you might be thinking though. Sure, you can get shafted by Soldier of God, Rick, the moment you touch the ground. But that's not where my concern lies. It's more so how insane you and your squad can be if you have a solid run, even as early as day 1. I had a couple runs where me and my randoms were so goated at reaching most POIs and beating a fair amount of bosses within the first day, to where day 2 and even the final boss felt like really trivialized. Isn't that kind of the point though? To do everything in your power to be as strong as possible by leveling up as much as possible and finding good loot. Well, it is. I do wonder though, how do you balance this game, intended to be difficult, in order to retain that hard-fought sense of accomplishment we generally appreciate these games for, while also being repurposed and giving the player the opportunity to potentially grow as strong as possible? I'm gonna leave that question with y'all. Feel free to drop your thoughts and insights on that in the comments. Then there's my final set of concerns, which mainly lie in the meta progression system, or for many, the ultimate incentive and appeal to boot up Nightreign more than a dozen times. There are items called relics you can acquire after completing a run, whether it was successful or not, which add traits and little passives to each respective class. That's probably a super watered down way to put it, but for the majority of relics I earned, I couldn't even equip them. Beyond the relics, there's a separate currency system which didn't have access for anything during testing, and I'm curious over how wide the usage of said currency will span. It has been confirmed that there will be cosmetics to whatever degree customization will be, but I hope there's more to the use of currency than that. And since I'm on the topic of in-game currency, no, there is not going to be any microtransactions in case you weren't aware. Nightreign has some big shoes to fill, as I'm sure we're all aware. On release, we should hope to see this game in its entirety transcend what we experienced during the network test. While Miyazaki is likely working on the next big thing, we should expect this game to not only be a bit of a filler game to enjoy in the meantime, but to see just how well a Souls game can do should it expand its groundwork through other experimental titles. And now that I'm thinking about it, there is one game I do play every now and then with friends that perfectly parallels Nightreign's existence: the Outlast Trials. If you've never played Outlast or never heard of the game, let me explain what it is real quick. The Outlast games are the most unsettling games I've ever had to sit through and play. The first two Outlast games are single player games, which place you in dire straits. I mean, Batman wouldn't want his greatest op here. That's how bad this shit is. There is a story present in the first two, and off the rip, you are told you gotta run, hide, or die. Yes, you heard me correctly. You are banned from throwing hands. For some reasons, the devs thought it would be genius to forbid the player from squabbling up. And that alone gives this franchise its unique identity and successfully enhances the fear factor of chase sequences. But for some, I know that shit doesn't sound fun. What's the joy in just being a victim? Growing up, I was watching some of my favorite YouTubers play this game, and I thought to myself, how dope would it be if this game was multiplayer? That is where the Outlast Trials comes through. Like Nightreign, this game uses the formula from predecessors and reworks the gameplay loop. It's co-op focused, and the most controversial aspect was the change in its game design philosophy. The player survival is no longer bounded by running or hiding, as there are tools, throwable items, and a perk system to increase survivability. There's also a story present through documents you can find throughout the maps, but it's not a focal point no more. So you gotta ask yourself, do these additions made to the gameplay and lack of narrative focus take away from experiencing the grit, unadulterated horror that is its predecessors? Somewhat. But of course, that's just a consequence by intended design, and it works. The game is fun. And that's what gives this title its own identity from its predecessors. Nightreign is doing the same in its respective way as a Souls game. With all that said, I'm gonna get into the good shit now, and we gotta start from the top. I might just be Sigma, the way I'm pondering this melody, because holy, what is it? You hear this motion, this aura. Young boy, thank you for blessing us with another godsend track. Voice of an angel, I say. You know, unfortunately though, this might be one of the few original tracks we get from this game. Next thing you do after listening to the main theme in full is load in and just queue up, because ain't shit to do at the round table. Okay, I'm rage baiting, but there are a couple things you can do, like mess around with your relics or hit the shop or go to the training grounds. But outside of that, I promise you that's kinda it. I'm saying, they should have had the round table be a lobby so you and friends or randoms could just be goofy and spam your left button. Yes, this is essential to enhancing the player immersion. Okay, moving on for real. I had a lot of fun with the characters I played, and I'm gonna be straight up. I didn't get around to playing the mage, but I do have something to say for her. But let me start off with the Duchess. On some freak timing. Hear me out. If Lady Maria and the Firekeeper could procreate, you'd get the Duchess.
Oh my god, bro.
I cannot talk about her without mentioning her movement, because on goodness, she's clean with it. Peep this. Weave. I know my fellow Bloodborne Glazers took a standing ovation, seeing her not only sidestep, but witnessing she is Weave Nation certified. Her unique dagger moveset is also dope, but I'm not gonna lie. Until I find a relic that makes that shit useful for more than 10 minutes into each run, I'm just gonna bin it every time. And despite being a movement god, her ability kit makes her busted. We've all seen the disappear at ultimate, but her tactical ability. For the first few sessions, and even now, players ain't even know what it did or how it was supposed to be used. And this took me back to simpler times. JoJo fans, rise if you would. Her ability has got the "this is how King Crimson works" aura, man, I'm crying. even now, without doing any research over it, off the top of my head, I'm thinking it replays present enemies and mirrors any damage they've taken about 5 seconds prior to activating it. Big fan of her, she'll probably get balanced better for the full game. John Nightreign, my glorious king, we have you. Hold on, time out. About halfway into editing this video, your boy got approved for monetization. Yatta! Now what does this mean? I don't know. I'm gonna experiment with how this would even work, so full disclosure, I'm gonna keep this video monetized alongside the previous two, except for my first video. So yeah, thank you for all the support, love y'all, and let's get right back to it. John Nightreign. This character was a lot of fun. Where the Duchess is a Nightfarer with an emphasis in dexterity, Wilder's got a little bit of this and a little bit of that in terms of stats. So I felt more at ease using whatever melee weapon I found. When it comes to his claw shot or his grapple hook, I wonder how far the tech behind it could really span. At least beyond what we know now, using it to either attach onto the terrain or enemies. It felt really clean to use in combat, but even better, to close the distance between me and a knocked ally if there was a boss charging me. But there's one aspect to his kit that took me back to simpler times. The ultimate ability. If you can't relate to what I'm about to say, I apologize in advance. This was some goofy hoodlum shit. If you know, you know. Hey bro, you dropped this. No self-serve. Come here. That's a neck!
10 years later.
Hey Morga, you dropped your room. No self-serve. Give me that neck! I know Guts would be proud seeing Wilder move like this, but I gotta take a second to look at the few of y'all who did this trick and counted it if it was above the waist. You're a cheat! Fundamentally, I think Wilder perfectly complements the intended pace of the game, with his claw shot and the aggressive nature of his ultimate, 100% the most suitable as the poster boy for this title. You have my respect. Amongst the Nightfarers, there's also a Hawk too. I've seen a lot of people downplay the hell out of this character, and I can see why, but I might be in the minority if I told you that this was my favorite character. The Guardian, as the Hawk 2 has a title like the rest of them, definitely needs a reconstruction and revision on his kit. His tactical ability, which forces enemies into the air, is absolutely useless against larger mobs, which at some point beyond the start of each run becomes the focal adversary you'd ideally want to face. His Great Shield also has a unique ability, which, full transparency, I didn't even know about till after testing wrapped up. So being the beefy class, his primary purpose is being damage control for the team. But if we're being honest, staying on the defensive isn't even that fun or engaging. You know what'd be dope though? If his shield passive had the ability to gain a unique move or punish after blocking, entwined with the tactical or even ultimate ability he possesses. Speaking of his ultimate, for me, it's absolutely S tier. It's more than dealing a heap of damage with the ground slam AoE, which by the way is dope as hell to pull off. It's like the biggest crutch mechanic when your allies go down. I was moving like prime LeBron. I could hear my teammates calling me their Labubu bear every time I hit that move and res them. So despite admitting where this character has its shortcomings fundamentally, it didn't take away from the fun I had in the moment, but hopefully they look back into making the traits that make him unique more viable. Moving on from the Guardian, there's the other Nightfarer I ain't talked about yet, and that is the Recluse. The only reason I didn't play her was because I'm super based. I'm an enjoyer of melee weapons over spells. However, I have seen how diverse her kit actually is. She's got a variety of pocket nukes she can drop on her opponents, a bender of the elements, and with the time given to us, I couldn't wrap my mind around trying to learn it at the time. With that said, I can't wait to actually spend some time learning her and how she best optimizes her builds during the full release, because not only does it look fun, she looks busted. And speaking of busted, yes, I had to bring this up. You gooners have been fed generationally by FromSoft once again. What did Cardi say? Oh my god, he a goon. Yes, you know who you freaks are. With the full release having a total of 8 Nightfarers, I can only hope each of them fulfill their unique roles well, synergize well with the other classes, and most importantly be fun. Only having 4 during the network test, I was definitely impressed and engaged with the ones I played, and reacting to how other players use them too, so my hopes and expectations for the other 4 are relatively high. And I especially can't wait to play Sekiro Simulator in Nightreign. So after having selected my Nightfarer for a run, I was getting Halo Infinite PTSD during that slow walk-up cinematic, because half the time somebody's weapon was missing. Now, after having dropped in Fortnite style, I'm joking, it's game time. All gas, no brakes, go, go, go. Of course, I wouldn't want to play any other Souls title like this in their traditional form. But for this game's purpose, it works so well. The moment you touch ground, it's time to lock it in. From the full-on sprint to the ability to scale up walls, I knew this game demanded my undivided attention with every passing second. Everywhere I explored, I made sure to loot what I could, defeat any adversaries where possible, and get the attention of my randoms in the event we were split, so I could have assistance in taking down a challenging boss together rather than wasting time on it by myself. If there were points of interest nearby, obviously that would be my next move, as it was definitely crucial to find merchants who'd potentially sell stones for weapon upgrades and viable consumables, or seeking Churches America with the charges necessary to increase my maximum flask equipped. Nightreign urges you to optimize your time spent doing everything efficiently as possible, and I'm a fan of this direction for this type of game. Congratulations, FromSoft. You've now factored in the utilization of time management as the centrality to the challenge with this formula of game design. Should the player fail to find better loot by lack of exploration, and in turn, less upgrades for their weapon, flask, or overall level ups, there's a good chance they're gonna get stomped on by the first night's boss. With that said, I've got a hot take, a bar that might be a steamy pile of mierda. But please feel free to engage about it civilly in the comments. While my favorite part of this game is the emphasis on how players use their time, I believe it's also going to be this game's only real demand in strategy. Your Honor, my reason is plain and simple. If you're running matches solo, that's one thing. You're not going to be graced with the crutches of having 2 other people with you. Therefore, locking in is a necessity. And that's how it's always been, in all fairness, if you've ever done solo playthroughs. On the other hand, here's the thing. Raise your hand if you played Elden Ring. Yes, dumbass, I'm talking to you. Raise your hand. It's a majority of you. Okay, now raise your hand if you're going to be trembling the moment you gotta squabble up with Big Bro again after having faced him at least a couple times in Elden Ring. Look around you. Notice how no one has their hands up? You see, even if they add some attacks to older bosses, unless if you're a new player entirely, for the returning majority, there's going to be little to no learning curve in the keyword combative sense these games are praised for respectively. In the same sense with how Outlast reworked its core gameplay philosophy to best fit trials, Nightreign's learning curve is going to shift towards how the player habitually adapts to the rotation of each map, especially if they end up being generated 100% randomly for the full release. What will divide a skilled player in this game from others will be map knowledge and their strategic leaps to action, might that be independently or with a team. Anyways, this is what I meant when I said the centrality to the challenge will be how the player strategizes optimal routes in their runs due to the shift in game design. Of course, people still gotta dodge, but as long as you're in a trio, as opposed to previous titles where your friend will get sent back to their world if they died, there's leeway in being able to res them, and should they die, they'll just come back to life with one less level. Like I said, I endorse engagement in the comments about my statement, because I might be on the dot with this insight, or I've exposed my fraudulence. Some may call me out because in my last video, I stated reused bosses would probably have new moves, and it might suddenly seem like I'm dunking on that truth now. So for clarification, I'm not. My idea on giving bosses unique attacks to keep all 3 players engaged simultaneously would add much more sauce to altered and added moves, therefore keeping returning players on the lookout for those unique moves that requires newfound strategy to evade amongst the team. And since I got all that out the way, in addition to my first impressions and experience with the renewed gameplay loop, I gotta talk about the closing ring. Yes, the bit that gives you rotted people the Fortnite PTSD. The existence of it is merited with the pacing of the game. There is a good chance a boss of interest and certain POIs will lie near the outskirts of the map. Usually within the first night, not only do you want to be leveled up, but you want to find those resources that definitely enhance your survival, like a flask charge. Hypothetical situation here. Let's say you focus on heading to the center of the map off rip, and completely forget about what lies near the outskirts. You ain't even bother to peep your map for real. It's half day now, and after having fought some enemies, you realize 3 flasks won't be doing shit for you. Then, the sudden realization hits. You forgot to check where those Churches America were. You peep the map, and bam, the ring is closing in on those locations, assuming they haven't been engulfed in flame already. There's no longer an opportune way to get to that charge now, so you'll just have to wait till day 2. That is, assuming you survive night 1. More on with those various fundamental differences, what I didn't expect to like so much would be the conveniences of leveling up and the progression per run. You could argue the lack of build diversity is present here because of how classes have their respective presets, but in turn, I don't have to worry about an equip load stat anymore, or where I choose to dump my points per level. All the more it coincides well with the intended pacing of the game, because as I grew stronger per level up, my other main objective was ensuring the discovery of better gear for my respective kits, and that's mainly going to be guaranteed by the RNG through prioritizing bosses. More on the existence of the roguelike elements in gameplay and the effectiveness in rushing down larger foes and bosses, there's the passives you can get from defeating them. Personally, I didn't have a problem with the bland and simple upgrades I could get, like a little 10% increase to my damage dealt. But obviously I have no problem in also saying giving the most insignificant of passives more effectiveness would all around be a good thing. As far as the RNG goes, it's definitely thrilling to land yourself a nutty passive when you come across one. Unfortunately, I wasn't blessed by the RNG, but I've seen other content creators having utilized some crazy shit they found. But then there's the few which are cool but weird and like relatively useless for that. Like being overcasted by crashing spells around you so long as you restrict yourself to walking or something. There's no way that's actually viable in combat. But if you know ball and aura farming, then I see the vision. For what the network test offered, for me, the cherry on top to everything I've mentioned up to this point, especially in correlation to the pacing of this game, is the average time spent per completed run. We're looking at between 20 or 30 minutes per run of straight scrapping. Nobody's gonna stop for anything. In the eyes of these bosses, we're probably moving like Prime Vaughn. But seriously, the length of these runs average a solid sweet spot in my opinion. You know, I feel like I should dedicate a segment to the Gladius fight, but I'm not gonna do that. The aura building up to the battle, the arena itself, it's absolute cinema. As for the fight itself, it's dope, and I can't wait to get into Nightreign for some solo runs mastering this fight as I have from bosses with older games. But I will stand by my criticism of the separation phase to handle 3 players individually rather than it being an aggro swapping shitfest. Okay, but get this real quick, right? Imagine if one of the 8 final bosses is a fully envisioned battle against Godwin. Yeah, I know some of y'all would fold at the greatness that would behold. I'm there with you too. So all in all, what is Elden Ring Nightreign? Like I said, I can't answer that for you. It'll be up to you when the time comes. For me, however, the game was fun and engaging, and if I felt that way with some randoms I was queued up with, I can only anticipate how generational my pull-up game with my friends is gonna be. Even then, however, I wouldn't disregard genuine points of criticism in this video and in my previous one, from how the game should feature duos down the line, cross-platform, which is apparently something on Bandai's end more than FromSoft's, to improving the quality of life for players and keeping the gameplay loop as diverse as possible. And we'll see what was held from us when the game comes out this year in May. If you're right here, right now, hey, sub up, I'd appreciate it. If you're a fan of Invincible, stick around because I'm itching to talk about that finale in the next video. And I'll start by saying, Immortal is moving like Tony Snell.
No, I've given this world enough. No, I've given this world enough.
What does he even do? I swear, Oliver's got a better stat sheet than that fraud. Hopefully I don't hop on that wave too long from now either because college has got me in a chokehold, bro. Sale pues. I'll catch y'all next time.